Finish that cow today?
Here's like a smaller one.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. You do a lot.
I know. I was like, I still want to use it.
$50,000 Thank you so much to everyone who's come on board so far. We are trying to hit this goal by 10.
What do you feel like you're still left to do?
Okay.
Cool. Oh, there's something important right there. Oh, shoot. Okay. Well, Sports will get back on. Okay.
We've been doing this thing for 16 years, for 16 years. People listen to the listeners of the current. I said, yes, we would move this thing down, keep the smart request, make sure that music is spelled out. It's not happening. Right now. Fans engaged with all these sustainers for NPM wanted to give some love to the country. Feel that energy, give some love to the country like Megan did. We are down to the wire, but that's where we need to be to make sure we keep on going strong. It's been an uphill battle to get to this point where we're just looking for people to make up $9,877 in the next 3 or 4 minutes. And you might be laughing. Listen to the radio, July, or laughing. We're sucking out coffee and know that this thing's possible. And this is how you really truly contribute to the programming here on the Curriculum. You support this radio station. In the last year, and be a part of the connection so many times, whether it's you having similar to being employed while you're working at home. It's you and if you would uploads over your music. It's great because frankly, especially during this countdown, music and music. Exciting things about our relationship are logistically unconventional. We've also heard listeners who are Christian. And now listening to the current ways we stay connected to each other. I'm grateful to you in all the ways I can't express. So this donation is thank you to all of us. Jay and St. Paul, thank you so much for that message. And you should know the Saturday nights when I used to do the request show. You host now on Saturday nights. I would get phone calls, and I would get phone calls from friends that were really connected.
Good morning, everybody. We are not going to have notes today, so you don't need your notebook out. Good morning, people who are at home. You don't need your notebooks out either. I'm going to take attendance really quick, and then we'll jump into just a little reboot of what we did yesterday, just so it's fresh in your brains, and then we'll have a demo, and then you'll be working and maybe going outside. Okay, so Lauren Jones is not here. Grace is here. Ruth is not present. We have Keaton, we have Franklin, we have Williams, we have London, Nyla, Kalia, Bryn, Lauren, Nicole, Abby, Matt Miller, Lily, Abby, Allison, Caitlin, Val, Saif is here, and Thomas and Jamie. Hey, welcome back, Jamie. All right, So here's what's going on today. We started yesterday talking about our leaf bowls. And so this is what we're going to accomplish now today. We're going to learn how to make a really big slab of clay, because you need a big slab of clay to be able to make your bowl. We're going to look for some good leaves to imprint in that clay. And so at some point in the hour, you will probably be taking a little nature walk, going to look for some leaves that you could use to print in the clay. We're going to consider composition. Is a composition that is symmetrical one that is pleasing to you? Or do you prefer one that is asymmetrical? There's not one that's better than the other, but it is something I want you to consider as you're placing your leaves. Think about how they're going to look good together and create some nice balance. And then finally, you're going to be creating your bowl today using a slab on top of a mold, and I'll be showing that in my demo. So just some different ways to consider doing this project. We're probably not going to do the way on the left, because I don't think that there's any leaves out there right now that are that big enough to have that be the whole bowl. Plus, if you look at that, that's no cereal bowl, that's no soup bowl. So we want something that's actually going to be able to hold some food. So what we're doing is going to be probably a little closer to what you see there, where the leaves are part of the design. The leaf is not the outline of the bowl, okay? So you're going to be making a round bowl or a square bowl or a heart-shaped bowl or whatever kind of mold you pick, and then pressing leaves into it to create a design. So here you see some different uses of the leaves. These are all little baby maple leaves and pressed into the clay to make a pattern. Pressed in, by the way, with the veins down, because the veins are going to be more dimensional on one side, and you want that dimension pressed into the clay. Those are some little snippings from an evergreen tree, and then this looks like, I honestly don't know what this one is down here, but it's a single branch from maybe like a rosemary plant, I think. It's hard to say. But the point is, you can either grab several small leaves and press them in to create an all-over symmetrical design, or you can grab a single larger branchy kind of leaf and press that in to make a symmetrical or asymmetrical design. So the best kind of leaves are ones that are relatively flexible, have some texture, interesting shapes or edges. Yesterday, some people went out and kind of test drove some leaves to see how they would turn out. Those people who tested leaves out yesterday, do you have any advice as to what works better or what works not as good? Okay. All right. The one thing that I remember people saying, like when I did touch base with those folks who tried this out yesterday, is that if the leaves were really baby, like really small, like brand new growing leaves, sometimes they didn't have the strength behind them. So when they were stamped into the clay, they didn't leave much of an imprint. So, you know, for what it's worth, what I would suggest is when you go out looking for leaves, maybe grab 3 or 4 options and then bring them back. And if you try one in your slab of clay and it just doesn't leave any good mark at all, you can use one of your other options that you chose. Or say you find something that's pretty good and you press it into the clay, and then you realize you want more of that same kind of leaf, you can peel it up and use it again. Or if need be, you could go out and go looking for more of that type of leaf too. So I'm going to trust you guys a few at a time. We're not going to leave as a big group to go outside, but I'll trust you a few at a time to go gather what you need, to not steal it out of any landscaping, right? Like don't cut any tulips from around the Ojibwe Park little house or cabiny thing that they've built out there. So these should be wild things that are growing in the grasses or the trees. And also, please remember, don't take any leaves off this tree that's in the middle of the hill here, because that's in memory of Senor Summer, who was a Spanish teacher here. Wild flowers might work really well. Some people yesterday picked up what I think was goldenrod, which is a weed that has yellow flowers on it. And I think that worked kind of well for some people. So that would be a thing you could do. You can combine different kinds of plants on the same bowl. You can have one large branch or one large kind of set of leaves and have it be symmetrically based. In fact, this is a fern up on the screen, and Grace brought in some fern leaves, right? And so if anybody wants to try out a fern leaf, I think Grace has extras and would be willing to share. So this would be a symmetrical composition where the stem is basically in the middle and then the leaves kind of come out equally, more or less equally on both sides. And then this would be an asymmetrical composition where the plants are kind of off to one side, which creates a little bit more tension, but it is a form of balance that's asymmetrical, and you could totally do it. And the reason I think it works in this, middle plate is one of the stems is kind of off to one side, and the other stem is kind of leads us toward the middle. So it does kind of still create that balance, that asymmetrical balance in the design. All right, so I just wanted to show you those as a refresher of what you learned yesterday, what you saw yesterday, since you're actually going to be doing it today. So I'm going to demo over on table 9. So if everyone could gather around that table 9 area. I'm going to bring my computer over. And could you flip on the lights over there by the door before you come over, please? Thank you. And I need to record or not record. I am recording. Feel this chair. All right. So I have my little plants that I got from the teacher parking lot again this morning. They're in water this time, so they're not so soft and floppy. And I've got all the supplies that I need, except my clay. I'm gonna have to grab that in a sec. So first, I'm just gonna tick down the list of steps that are on the screen up there. The first thing you need is a mold. And people who are at home, you have a mold, or you should have a mold. If you don't have one, it should look like this. It's made of plaster. It's kind of heavy. It seems really strong, but it is fragile, so be careful with it. Don't drop it on the floor. It can shatter and break. So you should have a mold. If you don't have one, wait around to the end and tell me that so I can get you one. People who are here in person, the molds are down here on the floor in these bins. And some of them are big, and some of them are small, and some of them are oval, and some of them are square. So the kind of mold that you pick is going to dictate the size and shape of the bowl that you end up making, because we're going to be laying the clay on the mold. So you're going to choose your mold. Then you're going to choose your leaves. So what I'm going to ask is that the people who went on the leaf hunt yesterday, raise your hand if you left class and you went outside and picked leaves yesterday. All right, so that's not half of you. I'm gonna have half of you stay here, and I'm gonna show you how to use a machine that you'll need to know about in the classroom. And the other half of you will go out picking leaves, and then we'll switch. Like when the first group comes back, the second group will go out. People at home, obviously, you can leave your house and go get leaves anytime. So you're gonna get your leaves, and I talked about that already. Then you're going to need kind of a lot of clay for this project. And so we're going to take about a big grapefruit of clay. Okay, for people here, you have unlimited clay. You don't have to worry so much. People at home, big grapefruit. And that's what we're going to use for this project. So I have my clay already sitting out. I'm just going to grab it. And really important that you wedge it. So on this wedging table over here, people who are at home can't see me. I am going to slam it down 3 or 4 times to pop any air bubbles that are inside there. Then I'm going to wedge by pushing away, turning back, pushing away, turning back. And I'm going to do that maybe about, I don't know, 5 to 10 times, just to make sure it's all mixed up and ready to go. Then I've got my wedging cloth here. And I'm going to make a pretty big slab. And it's going to be really important today that we make that slab as consistent as possible. So I'm going to start by pre-flattening my clay, and I'm kind of making it in the shape of a deflated football. That's really what you want, is that kind of long oval shape. And so I'm just pre-flattening it as much as possible so I don't have to do so much work with the rolling or the throwing. And then I'm going to do the same thing I did yesterday. I'm going to throw this slab, and I'm always going to have a different edge leading forward. So when I throw it, I'm going to like act like it's in slow motion. When I throw it, I'm going to be throwing like this. So this edge catches first, and then this edge stretches that way. Okay, so I'm going to do that. So it stretches that way. And then I'm going to pick it up, and I'm going to turn it. So now a different edge is going to face forward. This is going to hit first, like this, boom. And then it's going to roll that way, and it's going to stretch that way. So boom. And then I'm going to turn it again. Boom. Turn it again. Boom. And I'm going to keep doing that until I kind of see some areas that are a little bit thicker. So I'm purposely making those be the area that gets thrown away from me. And you can see it's getting bigger too, so I'm having to use my whole forearm to hold it. And I'm going to try to stretch this to be as consistent. I feel like I make pizza right now. As consistent as possible. And here's how you test it to see if it's consistent. People here, you have a needle tool. People at home, you have a toothpick. If you stab through your slab on one part and then just kind of pinch and mark on the toothpick or mark on the needle where the top of the slab is and pull it out. That tells you how thick the clay is there. And so then if you test it in other spots, you want to see that it's approximately the same thickness. So this is a little thicker on this side here, but not tremendously different. And as this gets bigger and bigger, it gets very much more precarious for me to stretch it and throw it. So I don't want to rip it. So I think this is going to be, just check it here. That's good. Little tiny bit thicker there, but it's generally pretty consistent. So I'm going to go with that. Okay, so I made my slab. I got my grapefruit of clay, pre-flattened it. People at home, you could use a rolling pin, but honestly, this is the better way to do it, by throwing it diagonally. All right, so next, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take my mold, and I'm gonna set it flat side down on top of my clay, because I need to cut my clay. I need to cut my circle or my square or my, whatever shape my mold is. And so I'm gonna find the best part of my slab. So this is kind of the best part right here. Stay away from that thick spot there. And then I'm gonna cut it. This is gonna be a little bit tricky perhaps, because you have to kind of freehand this. I'm gonna cut the slab so that it's about 1 inch bigger than the mold all the way around. Now, if you have something like that's a perfect circle at your house that you could trace, that's like 1 inch bigger than your mold all the way around, go for that. So you have that nice perfect circle. But if you're doing a square, like if your mold is a square or if it's some other weird shape, you're gonna have to do this trick. So I'm just cutting all the way through the clay and keeping my cut about 1 inch bigger all the way around. If you're not super precise about it being 1 inch wider, there are ways that we're gonna be able to fix that later. So don't worry too much about it. People at home, you're gonna use a toothpick to do this. People here, you're gonna use a needle tool. And notice how I'm holding the needle tool. This is actually, it seems like very mundane, but it's actually really important. The needle tool was straight up and down. Anyone know why that would be important to make that cut straight up and down? Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. If you kind of forget as you're cutting and you start to cut like this with the needle at an angle, this lip, this part you've just cut will become your lip. Your lip is going to be at a weird angle. So it's really, really important for you to remember to keep that toothpick or keep that needle tool straight up and down as you're doing that cut all the way around. Now, all this clay is extra. I'm not going to need it. So this, if you're at home, wedge it back together so it's nice and compressed, and put that back in your bag for a later project. People who are here, this is going to get recycled in that big garbage can to the left of the mixer. All right, so I'm carefully going to take my mold off my slab of clay, and now I get to start imprinting my leaves into the clay. So maybe I have a little sponge here. I don't think this is on your steps, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to smooth up, or is it on the steps? Smooth the edges. Yep, it is. I'm going to smooth up my edges because they're kind of rough and slabby. And I'm also going to get rid of any like weird textures that might be in my clay. This, the part I'm looking at right now, is going to become the inside of the bowl. So I have some leaves here that I found in the parking lot today. I kind of like this one. So maybe I'll do them. So the stem is coming from one direction on one side and the stem is coming from the other direction on the other side. Or maybe I just like one of these and I'll have it be centered in the middle. Or maybe I want it asymmetrical. The other one that I have is a pine branch, and that's also kind of cool. But I think I'm going to go with this deciduous leaf, right? So I think I'm going to do that one. And I'm going to center it. Symmetrical composition. I forgot my rolling pin. Have that. People at home, you have a rolling pin. People who are here, did you see where I got that from? That's where your rolling pins are. So I'm gonna place my leaves. So yesterday I wasn't so careful about that in the demo. I want to be purposeful for where these leaves are going to go, so they're not bent in a weird way. Okay, so now they're kind of placed where I want them. So now I'm just going to lightly, you don't have to press super hard, but just firmly enough so that your leaves become embedded in the clay. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, so moment of truth. Now I'm gonna peel it. Yeah. Ooh, the flowers actually look really good. I will try and lift it so you guys can see. There we go. Okay, so the leaves are pretty faint, but they're there.
This clay has plasticity, remember? So it's getting pushed aside and it's going to stay pushed aside in that little pattern. And there are little tiny bits of my flour that are stuck in the clay. Don't even worry about that. If you were to fire this, those little bits of flour will burn off in the kiln. So it's not a problem that they're there. Okay, so now I'm ready to turn this cool, slabby, floury design into an actual bowl. So this is kind of going to be an awkward part or a tricky part to do. I have to take my slab and I have to flip it upside down so the flour part is upside down on my mold. So I'm just really carefully as I can, putting it upside down on my mold. And then I'm just going to use my whole hand to slowly, this has got to be a slow process, slowly nudge the little clay platelets that are in this slab, nudge them together so that they curve and take on the shape of this mold. That's the whole point of a mold. And it's not going to be a quick process. If you try and just like push on it really, really hard and get it to take on the shape really quickly, it's going to rip. And in fact, I'm getting some little tears here already, but I'm not going to sweat that because I'm going to be able to come back and smooth those away with my sponge when I'm done. If you get a big rip, then you might have to patch it with a little bit of clay. So now I'm slowly just using my fingers to gradually make that slab wrap itself all the way around the mold. And one thing you might find helpful is putting it up on your slip container so you can get your hands a little bit lower and just give it a little squeeze, like you're hugging it with your palms all the way around. Now, one thing you want to pay attention to, I can tell that I did not put this on there centered because it's lower on this side than it is on this side. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a nudge. I'm going to move it over until that lip looks a little bit more centered. Okay, and so then once it's on there, it's really making sure that it's hugging those curves, the little cracks that are on there. Oh, sorry, people at home, you couldn't see that. Those little cracks that are on there, I'm just going to take a sponge, give them a little scrub. I'm not going to push too hard because if I push too hard, what's going to happen to my design on the inside? Yeah, it's going to get flattened out. So I'm just trying to just scrub that surface just a wee little bit. And then for your progress picture for today, this is what you're taking a picture of. It's not going to look like much, but at least I'll see how far you got. And I'll assume that there's a flower or a leaf design on the inside. So snap a picture. This mold is going to, the minute the clay starts is put on that mold, the mold is going to start absorbing water out of the clay. And so when you're here tomorrow, that's no big deal because when your clay is leather hard, we'll just lift it off the mold and the mold won't continue to suck water out of your clay. If you're not going to be here tomorrow, let me know because then we have to do something to keep it pliable for Monday because that'll be your next day back if you're not here tomorrow. So if you're going to be here tomorrow, no big deal. Getting this far is fine. If you're not going to be here tomorrow, please let me know. People at home, doesn't matter. You're going to be with your clay tomorrow no matter what. So let me put it on my tray. After I take my picture, it's just going to be easier to carry around if it's on your wooden tray. And then slide the whole thing into your bag. Keep it wrapped up tight. And then we'll do the next steps tomorrow. Okay. The extra leaves that you have, I would recommend probably keeping those in a separate bag just in case you want to print the outside tomorrow. Actually, that's something you could do today. I didn't even think about printing the outside, but you totally could. You could take and imprint your leaves on the outside today. We're going to be adding a foot tomorrow, but that can be, you know, you can do that even if there's a design on the outside. The only mandatory design is on the inside. It's not going to be mandatory to have one on the outside. You can do that, but you can. Yes, especially if it's little leaves, it would work really well. Okay, people who are here in person, who can I get to volunteer to go on their nature walk now? I want to send half of you now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's have 9. I got you already. I got you already. 9 is fine. All right. So you folks, set a timer or something for 10 to 15 minutes. Go on walkabout. Don't pick any flowers that are planted by the city of Woodbury. Gather what you can. Come back here. Everybody else, I'm going to demo something for you in 2 minutes after I have a chance to check in with the people who are at home. Stay on the line, people at home. Actually, while you're waiting for me, people who are staying in here, you can choose your mold. You can grab your clay, but don't start making your slab yet. All right. Hello. Hello, people. I am going to take attendance with you today. And I'm also, if you have any questions, now would be a great time to ask them while I'm taking attendance. Okay, Jivana is here. Alex Knack is here. Claire Olson is here. Matthew Miller is here. I guess I don't need to record this.